Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.
What is up? Welcome to episode 21 of Two Bobs Cast. We're an A to Z rock and metal podcast. We are the Two Bobs. I am Herd, and I'm here once again with my partner, Mr. H. What up, Mr. H? How you doing?
I'm doing good, sir.
Good.
Good. Metallica.
We are at Metallica. Man, I have been waiting for this.
Me too.
When when you talk about doing these type of podcasts, these type of things, like this is the type of band I have in mind personally. Like this is one of my all-time favorites, and I've always wanted some kind of platform or something to talk about it, and I'm glad we are going to break these guys down. I'm excited.
Break them.
Yeah. So Metallica. What do you got for Metallica?
As probably everybody already knows.
Yeah.
Some of these stories are going to be repeats, but
that's fine.
There's a lot of good stuff in here. Founded in 1981 in Los Angeles by there's a lot of sometimes there's a misconception because they're kind of from San Francisco area, but they did start in LA. The band started in LA with Lars and James. Lars put an ad in the paper. I didn't look up what the name of it was. Is I don't know, some kind of musicians classified ad, but it wasn't like the LA Times, but it was some kind of one of them free circulars, like Scene Magazine is around here where you just go pick it up somewhere, right? So they was looking for like a like-minded musician who liked the same kind of music that he did, as this is Lars. And Lars was a big fan of the new wave of British heavy metal. So this was UFO and Thin Lizzy, Budgie, Diamond Head, Iron Maiden, like Def Leppard at the time, those bands. And James was like, "Oh, I like that stuff. Who is this guy?" So they met up, and Ron McGovney was a bass player, and he went to school with James Hetfield. And so James knew he played bass, and also knew that they could rehearse at his house. So Ron McGovney was around to play bass. Lars played drums. James was a guitar player. And they recruited Dave Mustaine also from the paper, and that was the original 4 people. Like there was another guitar player in there. I don't think I even put his name in here, but he didn't record anything or really do anything with the band. But they originally had some other guy just kind of fill in, but they ended up finding Dave Mustaine, and then that was kind of it for a little while. Later on, they ended up getting rid of Ron McGovney kind of before they ever really recorded anything. They played shows with him, but they moved on from him because they heard of this guy, Cliff Burton, playing a band called Trauma around the area and saw him, and they were blown away by how great this guy was. And they talked him into being in the band, but his demand was that they move from LA to the Bay Area because that's where he lived, and they agreed. So that's kind of why Metallica is kind of from the Bay Area, because when they really started, that's where they lived and that's where they played and rehearsed. But they were just blown away by Cliff. And then they recorded some demos. First show was in March 14th, 1982 in Anaheim. This was pre-Cliff though. This was still with Ron. And I guess the show didn't go very well because Dave had problems with a distortion pedal and broke a string, and they only played 2 two original songs that night, which was "Hit the Lights," which was reworked from Ron McGovney's previous band called Leather Charm, and "Jump in the Fire," which was from Mustaine's previous band called Panic. So they didn't even have all of "Jump in the Fire" done yet, and then they did a bunch of new wave of British heavy metal cover songs and stuff live. But then their second show, Motley Crue, they opened for Saxon at the Whiskey A Go Go, the famous whiskey on the Sunset Strip. Motley Crue was supposed to open for Saxon, but they dropped off the tour because they were already so popular. They were already way more popular than Saxon was, so they kind of dropped off to kind of go do their own thing. And Metallica got that gig, but in order to get that gig, they had to record a demo to play for the management, so the management would actually agree to let them play because they didn't know anything about them. They had only played one show. They didn't have anything really recorded, so they recorded their two songs and I think a cover song, but they opened for Saxon and off they went. First album, once they found Cliff, and moved to San Francisco and rehearsed a bunch. They wrote some more songs and they put "Kill 'Em All" out on July 25th, 1983. 10 songs. Just kind of there's some other stuff in here from previous before "Kill 'Em All," but we'll get into that as we go through the albums because there are 11 albums and we don't want to be on here for 3 hours. So we'll start getting into the albums. This was produced by a guy named Paul Curcio, who I've never heard of before or since. This is my first taste of Metallica. You could say this came from the tape trading circles somehow, some way, found their way to Brook Park, Ohio, to my friends, and my buddy had like a 15th generation dubbed copy of "Kill 'Em All." It didn't even sound good, but we were all kind of blown away. Like, who are these guys? Like, everybody was like, "You've got to hear this band Metallica. You got to hear this. You got to hear this." Like, and it blew me away too. So of course I had to make a copy. So I made a 16th generation or whatever copy that I was listening to in my Walkman. So this was my first foray into Metallica. This was recorded in 2 weeks for $15,000. It was originally to be titled "Metal Up Your Ass," with the album cover being a dagger coming up out of a toilet that the band were talked out of by their manager, Johnny Zazula, who raised money to record it for Megaforce. They settled on "Kill 'Em All," which came from Cliff, who was kind of talking about record companies as they were shopping this thing around, and nobody really, before they ran into Johnny Z, nobody really wanted to give him a chance. So he was like, "Kill 'em all," So it was in relation to the record companies. But so they went with that. I guess Cliff used to carry around a hammer with him everywhere he went because he just liked to smash things, which I thought was hilarious. So that's where the hammer and the blood and the shadow hand came from on the cover of "Kill 'Em All." So um, Metallica logo was designed by James with the two hooks on the M and the A there at the end. So it was pretty cool. This is all kind of in-house stuff. There was a guy that Lars knew that was starting up a magazine, and I can't remember which one it was, but he had two titles. One of them was Metallica, and the other one was I think the magazine might even still be around, but we'll just say it was Revolver or something like that. And he asked Lars what he thought of the titles of the magazine, and he said, "I like the other one," and because he loved the name Metallica and wanted to save that one for later, either for a song or for obviously the band name. So that's where that came from. I apologize, I didn't do even more deep research, but I can't. It escapes me the name of the magazine, but the guy went on and started the magazine and did really well. But even he tells the story. He's like, "Yeah, this guy he told me that this name was better, but I should have went with Metallica," and he wanted to keep it for himself. So, but hey, no hard feelings, and everybody loves Metallica. So, um, my favorites on this one, there's too many to mention. I love every song on this album. I listened to it so many times. I actually prefer the 1988 reissue because it was kind of remastered and redone, and it sounds better. And it has "Am I Evil" and "Blitzkrieg" on it, which are fantastic cover songs. "Am I Evil," Diamond Head with Metallica made the song kind of famous. Like Diamond Head version is the same, but it just doesn't sound as good. But and then Blitzkrieg was done by a band called Blitzkrieg, so just fantastic cover song. So once I wore out my dubbed copy, I finally ended up buying the cassette in '88 of Kill 'Em All with the expanded 2 songs on there. So, and I couldn't believe how great those were too. I'm like, oh my god, even these songs are great. So, but I loved "Hit the Lights." Four Horsemen is still one of my favorite Metallica songs. It used to be called "The Mechanics." Was written mostly by Dave, I think. He wrote a lot of the riffs on that one. I love "Jump in the Fire," which is also a Dave song from his band Panic, and "Metal Militia." Those are probably my 4 favorite songs, but I like them all. And "Motor Breath's" great. "Phantom Lord's" great. "Seek and Destroy." I'm kind of leaving the hits out, even. You know, "Seek and Destroy," they still play live all the time. They extend it to like 15 minutes, which to me is just, I'd rather hear him play 3 other Metallica songs than play "Seek and Destroy" for 15 minutes. But that's what they do. It's a good sing along. They always do it. So, but it's a great song too. I loved it when I first heard it too. So there's just "Whiplash" is another one. That's another great song. I've pretty much named them all, I think, at this point. So this one I have I have no skippers. I don't have any skippers until later, way later on. We'll get to those, but way later on.
Right.
I'll actually, when I get to it, I'll be like, this is the first song I listen to. Because, you get an album, you listen to it pretty much in order, right? So you just put it in and start playing it and see what it brings to you. You're not going to skip around, especially back then when you hadn't heard the songs ahead of time. So you're just going to play the thing. Well, it finally got to a point where I'm like, wow, this is actually the first song by Metallica that I don't like. And I still remember that to this day. So when we get there, I'll let you know. But this is a A- for me. I have all of their first 5 albums in the A range, which is just absurd. But because they're so good,
Yeah.
in their own ways, that I don't know. I'm like, I love this album. Like, how can I just rate it anything less just for rating's sake? Like, I'm just going to rate it how I feel about it. So I give this one an A-. This is number 3 for me. This is still way upper tier. I love everything about this album. But I'd come to love other albums more. So what did you think of Kill 'Em All, and what was your first? Was this your first foray? No, I don't think it was it? You kind of went back to Kill 'Em All later, huh?
Yeah. So, first of all, great job on the intro. That's a lot of stuff there.
I agree.
The one thing you missed was we got Kirk Hammett 2 weeks before recording the album. Dave got fired, and they flew him out to New York right before they recorded it. So, yeah, Dave's not on the album.
Skipped over that one. It's right here.
Yeah.
They fired him due to alcohol and drug issues and basically
Yeah.
starting fights with bandmates. And he was suggested by Mark Whitaker. Kirk Hammett was suggested by Mark Whitaker, which is Exodus's manager.
Yep.
And he suggested Kirk Hammett for Metallica, which, I can't believe I skipped right over that one. But it's just because there's so much stuff here.
No, there's a lot. Yeah,
But
there's a lot.
yeah, I skipped right over that. And it's funny that the Exodus guys couldn't have been too happy with their manager that they're like, hey, you guys should take this guy. And,
Right,
and they did. And he's fantastic. So
I thought for a second I had my dream of Mustaine on a Metallica album. I was like, man.
You do have some songwriting credits on here from him.
Absolutely.
Sure. But everything was re-recorded. So,
Yeah.
And a lot of it note for note by Kirk. So it wasn't it just wasn't Dave playing it, but it was what he wrote. So.
Yeah. I have a totally different experience with Metallica. And again, they're like the first band I really fell in love with. They're like the first band that I was obsessed with, that I had to see everything that they had going on, and I had to be involved in any magazine that I could find. Like, I was obsessed with these guys, but I was very late to the party, comparatively so to a lot of people, because I'm a little bit younger. So my first ever really time getting into Metallica is Black Album days. And that was when that came out, I was 11 years old. So when Black Album came out, that was like the first CD I ever bought with my own like allowance money. So that's where it all started for me. So kind of as a frame of reference from when I'm ranking these albums and giving you my view, a lot of these albums before like didn't exist to me until I was way into the 90s versions of
Yeah, and how could you
Metallica.
know, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, yeah.
So again, I worked my way backwards, and admittedly so, Kill 'Em All, while is a Metallica album, so in my mind it was amazing and great. It wasn't one of my favorites. It was a little harder to go back to this when you start with
Yeah.
the 90s version
It's
of it.
not the Black Album, that's for sure.
No, 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 no.
They grew a
So
long way away from this by then.
so I mean there was a time in my going back where I stumbled on this album and I was like, okay, I love it and I listened to it like crazy. I bought it, I had it on CD, but to me it's just kind of an average Metallica album because I know kind of all the stuff that they would become later on. So still great. I love hearing a lot of these songs live still when they play them. They still sound phenomenal. Um, Metallica in general was like my first, like I fell in love with the guitar solo. I fell in love with the riff. Like this is like all my education into this stuff. And going back and listening, like the riffs on this album are so good. The guitar solos are so good. The production it's pretty rough and it's kind of hard to like love an album that sounds like this if you don't have the history of like growing into it. So songs that I really like, most of them that you mentioned, Hit the Lights, Four Horsemen, Whiplash, a few weaker ones. Like I always thought that the bass solo by Cliff, the Pulling Teeth, was a little overrated. I like it, but it's one of those deals where I was kind of like, all right, I'm ready to get the Whiplash. Phantom Lord never really did much to me. It was kind of awkward. Like the slow part in the middle of it kind of weighs it down a little bit. Metal Militia, I think, is just kind of added on at the end. I really didn't care much for that. Obviously, Seek and Destroy is phenomenal. They still play that live, and it's still a big fan favorite. Uh, it's a great album. I have it as a B, so it's still really, really good. But I have it number 6 overall. Just a lot of stuff that I think, from my point of view, just when I got into the band, I think it's just a little harder to go back to this. So again, great album. It's still a B. These guys don't really put out a lot of bad stuff. So I really like Kill 'Em All. I still go back to it once in a while. I don't go back to it as an album, but I do go back to songs quite a bit. A lot of great stuff on here, but it's just number 6 for me.
Okay. Yeah, back to the Pulling Teeth, like it's something that it totally makes sense what you say because listening to it later, um, I guess it could almost seem out of place. But in 1983, when you're hearing this music that you've never heard anybody play before,
Yep.
and then you hear this guy play this solo on bass, like we'd all heard Eruption, right?
Yep.
Eddie Van Halen a million times, right? We'd all heard instrumental songs, but mostly guitar based, right? And this guy, and that's why right at the beginning you hear a bass solo take one. He did that in one take,
Yeah.
and to make a bass guitar sound like that it blew everybody's mind. So it has a special place when you first ever hear that at that time because nobody had ever made a bass sound like that before. It was unbelievable. So I totally get what you're saying though, where you go back and you kind of feel like, all right, this is kind of overrated. But at the time, man, it was
Sure.
mind blowing what that was, and you're like, oh my god, like what was that? We had never heard anything like that. Was that guitar? We don't even know what is that.
Yeah,
Like
your opinion of that hit me later on one of the later albums.
Okay.
But I think maybe it's just the order of things that I went back to.
No,
so,
it totally makes sense.
There is a point.
There's no arguing there.
There's a song later on one of their a few more albums where I had that same experience where I'm like, that's bass.
No.
That's bass going on in there.
Yeah.
It's so
yeah.
Not trying to shortchange Cliff at all.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying you are. I wanted to come at that with a little different perspective of because I don't listen to that song all the time now, right? Like I kind of played it out, right?
Yeah.
For me, like I don't hate it. I actually love seeing Robert Trujillo, the current bass player, play that, and seeing Jason Newsted play parts of that. Like I enjoy seeing those guys try to recreate that, but I don't really go back and listen to that song. Now, do I skip it? No, if I'm
No.
listening to the album, but I don't go back and look for that song. But it was just so mind blowing at the time. So,
Sure.
but anyway, we'll move along to Ride the Lightning, and this was great because at this time, as we've talked about many times, their bands are putting out an album a year, so you didn't have to wait long. So 1 year and 2 days later, on July 27th, 1984, you have Ride the Lightning with 8 songs. This was a little better produced, even though it was still on Megaforce at first. Fleming Rasmussen would come in and produce this, and he would do the next few Metallica albums. And Mark Whitaker somehow got his name in some production credits here too, which is the Exodus manager that suggested Kirk. So maybe it was a little bit of a trade off. Hey, you gave us this, we'll give you some writing credit or give you some production credit on here. No writing credits, but Cliff was an accomplished musician as a bass player, and he introduced the band to like more beginning music theory, where they began to flesh out their sound a little bit. This is where you have like acoustic guitars and instrumentals, not just bass solo, but instrumentals and more complex harmonies and things with guitars, and it's lyrically more mature. So this band is maturing quickly from the almost punk sounding, and I hesitate to even use that because I'm not really a fan of punk music at all. So it makes me hesitate to call Kill 'Em All kind of punk, but it is compared to the metal and the structure, the song structure, and things that they're doing later as they mature. So,
Well, I will say, just to kind of hop in there,
sure.
Metallica in Kill 'Em All, it's pretty obvious that they were completely wearing all of their influences literally on their sleeve. Like they were basically playing, like nobody heard at that point, I assume, and I'm just going by what people said, like they didn't necessarily know who Diamond Head was or,
Sure.
or whatever. So they
Yeah.
basically went up there and played like, Diamond Head or like Lemmy up there. Cause
Motorhead,
yeah, Motorhead was like, James was a huge Motorhead fan.
Yep.
They wanted to play like Motorhead and they wanted to play like Diamond Head. And
what they kind of did is, you're right, they took the new wave of British heavy metal stuff and they Motorheaded it.
Yep.
Like they took Motorhead's heaviness and put it on a new wave of heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal. That's kind of what they did and built from there. So that's a great comment there. This was the last to feature any songwriting credits from Dave Mustaine. I don't have a whole lot on this album. There isn't a whole lot out there as far as like production and stuff goes. It's just more mature. My favorites on this one are Fight Fire with Fire, From the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, Creeping Death. There's no skippers on here either yet. This is A- for me again. I love this album. There's nothing on here I would really ever consider skipping. This is upper tier. This is number 4 for me. This one is it's kind of on par with Kill 'Em All, but it's slightly different and more mature. I just like the songs. It's almost hard to say the songs on Kill 'Em All are more iconic to me, but I guess maybe more because that was my first kind of foray into Metallica. But I like Ride the Lightning a lot. But the good thing about Ride the Lightning is it's a great step to the next album. Actually, really the next 2 albums, but more so the next album, where I feel like that's where they got to greatness level. So I do really like Ride the Lightning, though. How did you feel about Ride the Lightning? I've got it number 4
yeah,
out of 11. 11 Metallica albums.
So I feel like this album kind of ruined Kill 'Em All for me. Like, not ruined it, but it was hard to go back because, man, Ride the Lightning to me was just better in every way for me, for what I wanted, for what I was looking for. So, man, I loved the heavy, but I loved the guitar solos, and man, the production is quite a bit better here. they really showed as songwriters, how mature. Because at that point, they were doing more of the thrash. They were doing more of the everything was pretty straightforward, heavy. In this album, they really showed like, hey, we're songwriters too. Like we can write melodies and we can write, anything that we want to. And, it added a little bit more on top of it. So, they have like Fight Fire with Fires is about as heavy as they get, that's on par with anything and Kill 'Em All. Ride the Lightning, heavy. But then they threw in like Fade to Black, they just showed like we can do it all. And
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. This was the first like a sign of really what they were going to be.
Mhm.
And I think this is, it's a killer album. I love it all. We had Tyler logged in, asked about Call of Cthulhu. Man, that was the moment where I was telling you where things were happening in that song that I couldn't believe was bass. Man, it's phenomenal. I'm not a huge instrumental fan, but Metallica does it right. They
Yeah, they do.
they kill it with these instrumentals. Like it's just really really good. I love it. No skippers here for me as well. Uh, Escape is kind of weird for me. I don't hate it, and I would never skip it because this is an album listen for me 100%.
Mhm.
Escape is a little weaker than everything. I think everything else on this album is god tier, like amazing. To me, that song is a little bit less than, but it's still good. I still like it. It's
For
still
me, there's two. It's Trapped Under Ice and Escape.
okay.
So for me, there's two that are a step below. Like I love Ride the Lightning too. Their second song. Like I didn't really
Yeah.
mention that one, but Call of Cthulhu is fantastic. But
Yep.
you got Trapped Under Ice and Escape right before Creeping Death.
Yeah.
And though where those are still good songs, like I would never consider skipping them. But those are, to me, those are the two that are lower level even for me than the Kill 'Em All songs are.
Okay.
Like for me, the weakest song in Kill 'Em All for me is Phantom Lord. So those two songs for me are kind of on par with that one, but I'd only rate this one below Kill 'Em All because this album has two of those.
Gotcha.
But by no means are those skippers for me. Those are still really good songs, but they're songs that they never play live either. So
Yeah. No. Well, especially Escape. I think they've only played it one time. And I
yeah.
think it was like a special show where maybe they played this whole album.
It was like wasn't that the one where it's in Antarctica or something like that? It
Maybe
might be
that's
the
what
only
it
time they
was.
played it. Like they played on the ice cap. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. But only the Metallica super groupie fans got to go to that one. But
Yeah. But
but
yeah,
that'd have been fantastic.
James has said he doesn't like that song
Yeah.
Escape. And Trapped Under Ice, when they recorded the album, was literally a throw-in just to. I guess the record company wanted one more song,
Yeah, they had
so
seven,
they threw it on there, and that rounded out the album. So that makes sense. I like Trapped Under Ice a lot compared to Escape. And again, I like Escape. It's not.
yeah.
It just is kind of weird for me. It takes a little while to get going. But I can't. This album's phenomenal. I love it. This is an A for me, and this is my number 2 overall album. I love it. Really can't ever say anything bad about it. There's so many good moments. I love everything about these songs, like especially Fight Fire with Fire. I love that song. Ride the Lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Ride the Lightning has one of my favorite guitar solos that they do. That section in the middle there where
Yeah.
it's just heavy as hell, and then they kind of wind up into the big ass section between where Kirk and James play off each other. It's such a good section. And I know Mustaine helped write that song. He's
Yeah,
definitely in
that's
the
his
credits
one
there.
writing credit. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, actually he actually has a credit on Cthulhu as well.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah, but I love this record. Yeah, it's an A for me, and it's number 2, and it's close too. It's these top few are just so hard to rank because
Yeah,
they're so
they
good.
are. And
They're so damn good.
switched them around at least
Yeah.
once. I'm like, Dad, I really like this one. And Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning were, for me, those were two really difficult ones to rate. And it's funny that you mentioned Fight Fire with Fire because once I heard that, I thought, no way can anybody ever write a better album opening song than Ride the Lightning. Well, I was wrong about that.
And then next album came.
And then the one after that. Like,
And then
it's
the one after that.
unbelievable, really.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You're right. Their album openers are probably like of their top 10 songs are probably 5 of their top 10.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
phenomenal.
But, I thought at that time, I'm like, man, that's the best opening song on an album I'm
So
ever
damn
gonna
heavy.
hear in my life. And I'm 12, right? I'm like, I'm never gonna hear anything better than that opening
Right.
an album, right?
Yep.
So, and then they put out Master of Puppets, March 3rd, 1986. 8 songs on this one as well. Fleming Rasmussen and Metallica produced this one together. They signed an 8-album deal with Elektra at this time, and they changed management from Johnny Z and Megaforce because they were just kind of outgrowing. They're growing at leaps and bounds at this point. So, and then they put this out and just kind of destroyed the world with what they put out here. After they also Elektra redid Ride the Lightning and put that back out too, so it sounded a little better if you got the Elektra version, not the Megaforce one. But they toured the States opening for Ozzy, and by all accounts, just pretty much, I don't think people left after Metallica played before Ozzy went on, but even Ozzy was like, I don't know what I was thinking putting these guys on there, and how do I follow that? Like, there's lots of YouTube clips out there, there's videos of them opening shows for Ozzy on this tour. So this is really, they started to really cement themselves and just blow everybody away, because all this band did for so many years was record and tour. They got so good at playing live, and it was just the energy. It was electric to see them play. I still hadn't seen them yet at this point. Again, I was 14. My first real kind of heavy metal concert was Van Halen. I was in July of '86. That was only 3-4 months after this, and actually 3 months after they were in Cleveland opening for Ozzy. But I was just too young to go to this. My parents weren't going to let me go see Ozzy for my first concert when I'm 14, and they're driving me there. I'm not driving, so, and I couldn't walk. It was a little too far for that. But yeah. Anyway, so they killed on this tour. Yeah, I had to use the word killed. This is also some sadness on this tour. They went to Europe. I have a little theory, but it's kind of existential. But anyway, Cliff Burton was killed in a bus accident on September 27, 1986. This really had an effect on me. I still have the magazine clipping from the Scene magazine that we were talking about, which is a free circular in Cleveland. It's a magazine. It's mostly about entertainment. There's movie write-ups in there, movie times, there's concert reviews, concert schedules. It's mostly that, and used to be a lot of strip club ads in it too in the back, because they had to pay for it somehow. But it was free at all the music stores, and I still have the write-up from Cliff's accident that I cut out and saved because it just had that much of an effect. I mean, I was just that big of a Metallica fan already that crushed me. But it happened in Sweden. The bus hit some black ice. The bus flipped. I guess Kirk and Cliff were arguing over who was going to sleep on the top bunk, and I think Cliff won and got to sleep up there, and actually fell out the window as the bus was tipping over, and the bus fell on him. Apparently, James has stated that he was going after the driver, asking him what happened. This was in the middle of the night in Sweden, so he basically said he was ready to end that guy. So I'm surprised he didn't, because this was, their whole world just kind of came apart at this point. They canceled the European tour. They came home to audition a new bass player, because they basically said that Cliff would beat their asses if they didn't continue to go on, even though they didn't really want to. They're like, man, because he was such a brother to them, and he taught them, right? He taught them how to record and how to write music in a way, that they were just kind of all over the place, and he reined us all in. Like, he's responsible for a lot of the sound that they were putting out and putting together. So
Yep.
he was a huge part of this band, not to mention a phenomenal bass player, and he, songwriter. It really crushed him. But my little existential thing is, I feel like the metal world, it gives back to us all of these great bands in Sweden because they took Cliff Burton away from us. So that is,
Yeah,
I'm
you're probably right.
philosophizing a little bit there, Tyler, but it's a little existential. But there's so much great metal music that comes out of Sweden these days, and it wasn't like that in 1986. So I almost feel like that's the metal gods give it back to us for taking one of our greats away from us. So, in other news on this one, Lars tried to recruit Geddy Lee of Rush to produce this album, but the schedules wouldn't allow it. So I thought that was really interesting. And there's, I'm not going to say I'm like some Metallica expert, but there's a lot of this stuff back then that I know already. That was something I didn't know. I was reading through. I'm like, oh, no kidding. Like I didn't know that. James and Lars wrote a lot of this music in their garage in Cali and in California, and then they got Cliff and Kirk involved to help finish it off and rehearse these songs. And that would kind of be the way that they wrote things for a while too. Lars Ulrich took drum lessons before this album. Kirk worked with Joe Satriani, who also taught him a little bit earlier in his life, to help him record better and to help make their sound more full and like make Lars a better drummer. So they were really working at being better, and it shows all over the place. So they strayed away from the production of the time in the mid 80s with all the synths. We kept talking about the synthesizers and the shiny production that everybody was doing in the mid 80s. They shied away from all that. And actually, a band well known for their drinking, were nicknamed Alcoholica for a long time. They remained sober when they were recording on recording days when recording this album. So they really put their maximum effort into this, and man, does it show. They are also gelling at this point and really reaching their peak and working well together as a unit, which makes it even sadder. I can't imagine what the next album would have sounded like if Cliff was still around. Like I wish we could have known, that what direction they would have went with Cliff. So it's just it's sad. But they're really gelling and coming together. And my favorites on this album, I love this album. My favorites are Battery, which again is the first track, which I thought it couldn't get any better than Fight Fire with Fire until I played the first track of this album. I'm like, oh my God, it's even better. So Master of Puppets obviously is just a classic, great song. There's so many great songs on here. Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes. Those are my four probably favorite songs. There's no skippers on here at all. I have this as an A. It could be an A plus. I don't even know why I didn't make it an A plus. I felt like there was more stuff coming up that maybe I would rate a little bit higher, but I have this as number 2. And it's really tough between this one and the next one, which one I would have at number 1. So I really struggled with that. So I have this number 2. I love this album all the way through. It's fantastic. What did you think of Master of Puppets?
Master of Puppets for me is a perfect album. It's in the legendary thing of metal albums. Like it's just from the first moment that you put it on until the moment that Damage Inc. ends, it's perfection for me. It's everything that I've based every metal album I've listened to on, for my whole life. It's, I listened to this for the first time when I was probably, I don't know, mid-teens, and ever since then, nothing else really could compare to it. So, it's high praise for me in my mind, and there's just nothing about it that I don't love. Battery is a perfect opener. Master of Puppets, probably one of the best metal songs compositions of all time. It's just so many parts, so many different solos, so many different breakdowns. Like, just, I love James and Kirk playing off each other, basically battling each other, kind of like Eagles with, when they would do their Hotel California solo. I kind of get that feeling. This is the metal version of that with Master of Puppets. Like, just
that's great. That's a great point.
Yeah, like it's
that's
just
a good one.
Like James
This is
does
before
his
Kirk
solo.
fell in love with the wah pedal too.
Yes. So I mean, this is just it's Kirk at his best. This is
Mm.
Cliff
The
at
whole
his
band at
best.
their best,
Yeah,
right?
literally, they
Yeah.
could not really compete where they were at. Production sounded great. Like, for as great as the next album is, obviously there's production problems. There was none of that. There was nothing. I'm with you, Tyler. I think Disposable Heroes is one of their most underrated songs. I love it. They actually just kind of started playing it again. They
Yeah.
played it a lot
Yeah, they did.
when this came out, but they also stopped playing it for many, many years. And now they play it a lot again, and I freaking love it. It's a great
One of my
song.
favorites too. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's just it's a we talk a lot on this podcast about how, man, just why are you got to do this so long? Why you got to make songs 6, 7, 8 minutes long? Metallica can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah,
If they're gonna do
yeah.
this,
That does
you
not
know,
fly here. I mean, I will
no,
mention it later. It does make a
yeah.
difference
Well,
at some point, but
when you're
not
not,
right here.
no,
Not
no,
right
no, no,
here.
no, no. When you're doing this,
This is all, like you said, perfection.
it
They
is.
couldn't do anything wrong. It didn't matter if the song
No,
was 9 minutes or 4 minutes. They couldn't do anything wrong here.
but
It was fantastic.
I do want to shout out Orion, because that
Yeah,
song, it still is emotional to me to
it
hear that.
is. It is.
Like there's like 3 bass solos in Orion. Man, he kills it. It
Yeah.
sucks. It really, really sucks. And we get an instrumental on the next record too that's emotional too. But it's just like, you can't listen to these and not just hear the bass like punching you in the face. It's phenomenal. I love this record so much. It's an easy number 1 for me. It was it was hard to do 2 through the rest, but for me, I'll just never forget listening to this album, and just nothing ever in my life has ever come up next to it, and it's perfection. I love it. It's an A+ for me. Obviously, I said it's a perfect album to me. So, yeah, everything else is kind of downhill from here, but this is the best. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the best album ever. For sure, metal, maybe all genres, but I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. But
Yeah,
I love it.
that's saying a lot. Even for just metal, that's saying a lot. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, for
there's some
sure.
great stuff out there that we've even already reviewed, and it's only been 20 episodes.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a whole lot more to come. But yeah, it's way up there, man.
Yep.
It's way up there for me too. Then we move on to Injustice for All. This is August 25th, 1988. There's 9 songs on here. This is Fleming Rasmussen and what would be a lot on the next, I don't know, 7 albums, James and Lars. So doesn't work to their benefit here, unfortunately. You've already mentioned it. This was the first album with Jason Newsted, although you wouldn't even know it, because they basically made his bass lines inaudible through most of this. James claimed that the bass lines were just doubling his guitar sounds and competing with his scooped sound that he was going for. And Lars also decided to just trim the bass down to next to nothing. The instruction was quoted as, turn the bass down until you can barely hear it, and then turn it down another 3 decibels. It's shameful, man.
Yeah.
It's shameful. Like, you did this huge, they auditioned, 80 bass players, something, 75, 80 bass players, and they settled on this dude. The dude's, Jason Newsted's a fantastic bass player in his own right, and to just, they still claim that it wasn't, they try so hard, it's almost too hard to tell you that it wasn't because they wanted to give it to Jason Newsted because he wasn't Cliff Burton. And I mean, that was his guilty. That's what he was guilty of, that he wasn't Cliff Burton. Well, nobody's Cliff Burton. You know what I mean? So, but they were still hurting. And, this was not long. This is only a couple years after that. So not even 2 years after he died. So, I mean, I don't want to give him credit for doing that, because I'm going to be honest. This is A+. This is my number 1 album. This is A+ for me, but I refuse to give it an A+. And that's the only reason why.
Right.
And it's kind of sad, because everybody that's heard the bass parts on here, which is like 3 people that were involved with recording this album, said that the bass is it's freaking phenomenal, like what Jason Newsted did, but you can't hear any of it. So the other shameful thing that really pisses me off is that they refuse to fix it even to this day,
Yep.
claiming that it's part of our history. Much like the terrible drum sound on Saint Anger that sounds like total shit too, and they won't fix that either.
Right.
So it's arrogance, I guess, at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if for Cliff's memory's sake they want to just keep it that way. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Cliff wouldn't want that,
No.
right? I mean, he would want the thing to sound as great as it could possibly sound. So I don't know. What I do love about this album, though, I'm not just going to keep bagging on that, because that is the only thing wrong with this album for me. The only thing. This is more political bass lyrics than previous albums, and this is number one for me because these songs are angry, right? Like this, James was singing about other things in Master of Puppets, and there's definitely some not anger, but there's some aggression there, right? That's why you like Metallica. Like there's aggression like in all their stuff, but this one is angry. I mean, you listen to Shortest Straw, like it's just, and the riffs are fantastic. The guitar playing all over this album. The Lars's drumming is phenomenal on here, and you're not going to hear me say a lot about that in a lot of other stuff that they do, especially live. But Lars's drum patterns on here are just outstanding. Like I love this album. It's so close between this and Master of Puppets for me. I felt like it was a cop out, but I almost wanted to rate them both number one.
Yeah.
Right. So I gave them both the same letter rating. I gave them both an A. I gave Master of Puppets an A because I thought this would be an A plus, but then I'm listening to it and I'm like, I can't give this an A plus because of production and what they did to the bass of this. So, and even from the first time I listened to this album, I love the songs, but I'm like, why does it sound like this?
Right.
Like the two albums before this sound great. You know, obviously Master of Puppets sounds a little bit better than Ride the Lightning, but not much. I mean, they're kind of recorded in the same place and have the same kind of sound to them. But I'm like, why does it sound like this? So that was the first time I thought that about Metallica, and I thought that again later. So we'll get to that. But I saw them twice on this tour. It's the first time I saw Metallica. I saw Queensryche open for them, which was fantastic.
That's Mindcrime, right?
I mean, yeah, that was when Mindcrime came out. It was so good. We got tickets. Me and my buddy Ed. We got tickets. I found tickets in the Plain Dealer magazine in the classified ads that this guy was selling, basically for face value, which was like $20. They were in the lower level, about halfway up, about halfway between the stage and the back of the arena. So they're on the side, about halfway up. And I called Ed, and I'm like, hey, dude, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I'm like, you want to go see Metallica tonight? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, I got to drive to Chesterland, which is, you know, I lived in Brook Park at the time. This is probably a 45-minute drive. So I went to this dude's house. Like, you can't do this in 2024, right? So I went to this guy's house who had these tickets. He comes down. He gives me these 2 paper tickets. I give him $40. And we go see one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
In the same day, right? So it was just kind of a last-minute thing. I'll never forget it. Ed texted me about 2 months ago, and he goes, hey, you remember that time we went and saw Metallica? And I'm like, yes, I do. So I'll never forget it. It was fantastic. The second time, that was in 88. The second time was with the Cult in 1989. They came to Cleveland twice for this album. My favorites here are Blackened. Again, unbelievable opening song. I mean, some people, that's their favorite opening song. Like, it just keeps growing. Like, it's just unbelievable. Eye of the Beholder, I love. I mean, the way that it kind of fades in is something I'd never heard before. Like, they're playing and it just kind of fades into the full, as full of sound as they would allow us to hear, sound of the song. Shortest Straw is still today one of my favorite Metallica songs. It's short, but that song just it makes me want to rage. I mean, it fills me with so much energy. It's not rage like I don't want to hit people, but it fills me with so much energy. I love that song. I love the lyrics all over this stuff. There's cliches everywhere that you never really heard put into music, and James pulled them all out. Like, there's so much good stuff in here. Harvester of Sorrow's fantastic. And that's kind of Harvester of Sorrow, and I didn't even mention one because when I first heard One, obviously I thought this is amazing. What are they doing? This is unbelievably good. But it's just there's so much fatigue for me now hearing that song so many times that I do still want to hear it live. I'm never going to skip it, but I don't list it as one of my favorite songs anymore. But there's just so much great stuff on this album. There's no skippers. This is number one for me for Metallica. I gave you the reason why I won't give it an A plus. It's one of my all-time favorite albums by anyone, but just because of the mix that James and Lars still to this day refuse to fix. Like, I would love to just hear the full version one time. I can't tell you how many replays I've heard of this where people have tried to adjust bass levels. I've heard people try to play bass along with this to try to make it sound fuller. I've watched countless videos of this to try to see what it would have sounded like with the full mix. Like, it's just, I feel robbed of that. Like, of a quarter of what is on this record. I feel robbed of it. Like, I've tried so hard to just try to find something that sounds normal. None of that sounds normal to me, though. Like, I think the only thing is going to be if they'd ever decide to put out, like, a cut of this, which I'm sure there are still recordings that have the bass at full volume where they could turn it up and re-record it or relay it down or whatever. I don't know. Tyler could speak more to that. But it's just, he knows the ins and outs. He's a musician. He knows what he's doing. But this is one of my favorite albums of all time. So what did you think of Injustice for All?
It's killer album, of course. This is just the third in a row of that. There's just nothing that I want to skip.
Man.
It's just so good. Like, just me going backwards again, starting with Black Album, then picking up Justice for All, learning that one again. I was so spoiled, man. I was, 15, 16, 17 years old, just learning these for the first time. And, it was just phenomenal. I love this. I love everything about it. It's, for me, it's hard to rank the top three. Well, the 2 and 3, because one will always be Master of Puppets for me. But then when we're dealing with Justice for All and we're dealing with Ride the Lightning, like, to me, those are just amazing albums that you could kind of put one at 2, one at 3, and then flip them the next day. They're just so good. I'm with you. I like Blackened. I love the title track. It's long,
yes,
but
yes.
another song which Kirk and James just back and forth. They just like, here, you catch it. No, you catch it. No, you catch it.
It's fantastic.
It's just,
and I can't list them all as favorites, but I love that one too. You know what I mean? Like, it's, man.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff.
To Live Is to Die. Talk about that, please.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah, well, I kind of touched on Orion, but Live Is to Die even more. It's just a sad, like, it's the guitar solos are just like it's like emotional as hell. It's just, it's Cliff's last writing credit ever. So you could tell he was just 100% in all of them when they were doing that one. Man, it's so good. The guitars, it's just like, it's probably the saddest guitars that you're ever going to hear from a Metallica, because usually, like you said, it's angry, it's heavy, it's, even when they're not at their, right now where they're at their best, it's still heavy and aggressive. But that song is just heartbreaking.
The range of emotions, right?
Yeah,
like, you go from Short as Straw, and 3 songs later you got To Live As to Die, which is, like you said, it's one of the saddest things. It's a goodbye to Cliff. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what it is. It's like he almost wrote his own goodbye.
Yeah, well, and then from going to that to Dyer's Eve, and that's all just a F you to his parents, and so, like, it's such emotions all the way around on this album. But I love it. There's
what makes it great.
Yeah, there's not a moment on here where you can let your guard down or you have any urge to skip anything. Like, this is all good. Every bit of it. Like I said, for me, just doing this list, it's 3 for me, but it's still an A-. It's still an A album. I mean, these are as good as it gets when we're dealing with metal. It's just just perfect albums. They're so good. So number 3 and an A- for me, but again, it could be 2 on any given day, any given hour, any given minute. Just happened to be when I made this list. I liked Ride the Lightning just a smidge more, but they're all good, man. It's Unfortunately, and again, we can't have these same albums written over and over and over again.
Right.
But it's kind of sad that they went in different directions and they felt like their creativity had to go in a different direction. And they made a lot of great stuff. We're getting to it here next, but
I mean, I'm not them, but I don't feel like they did have to go away
they
from that
didn't.
stuff because
Well, they did for them.
you can't. Well, right, but I mean, you can't tell me that this album sounds really at all like Master of Puppets does.
No, it doesn't.
You know what I mean? Like the song structures, everything about it is different. So they're able to be different in their own bubble and still sound like Metallica. Like that was the greatest thing about them is like you didn't know what to expect when the new album came out, but then you hear it and you're like, my God, like I think they got even better than they were before. Like it's amazing. So
Right.
and then when we get to the Black Album, August 12th, 1981. So this is 3 years, almost a couple weeks short of 3 years between here, 12 songs. This is Bob Rock producing. They liked what they had heard him do. They like what he did on Dr. Feelgood in particular. Is what I was reading that I didn't know either, that they heard what he did with Motley Crue on Dr. Feelgood and they wanted to work with him, but there was a lot of friction with him and the way he wanted to record. This was also produced again by James and Lars along with Bob Rock, so there was some tension there. This took them, I think, 8 months to record this. Like it's a ridiculously long time. But this is kind of a change in the sound a little bit more so. Like you had Harvester of Sorrow on Injustice for All, and that was kind of showed you the direction that they were kind of going, because there's more stuff on here that sounds like that than sounds like Short as Straw. There's a couple. There's some heavier songs on here too, some faster songs, but there's not as many. So you could hear in Injustice for All kind of where they were going, where they wanted to go, and that's kind of where they ended up. But the good thing for them is there wasn't much airplay for them on the radio up until one came out. And on this album, it's all over the place. They're everywhere. So it kind of made them more accessible to the masses and really just exploded them in music in general. This is one of only 2 traditional albums. Now, I read traditional albums. I didn't look up a definition of this, but I read this to be not a greatest hits like the Eagles, not a live album, not a soundtrack like Grease.
Mm-hmm.
Only 2 traditional albums in the history of Billboard have spent 550 weeks in the top 200. 550 weeks. That's, was it 10 years? That's over 10 years.
Yeah.
Not consecutive, but just in general, from the time it came out in 91 till 2020 or whenever the stat they put out there. The only other album, Tyler could probably guess it, Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd. The only other one, traditional album that had spent more than 550 weeks in the top 10. That's astounding.
Yep.
This album was remixed 3 times because they're perfectionists and it cost them $1 million to make this album. Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Jason Newsted all divorced their wives around this time, so they're kind of angry, fighting with each other, fighting with the producer, but also kind of coming together, I think, all at the same time. This is before a lot of the really heavy stuff started to go down with them, is that they were at each other, but then they were kind of them against the world kind of thing at the same time. So there's a lot of great stuff on this album, but this was definitely their explosion into popularity. My favorites on this one were Sad But True, Holier Than Thou, Through the Never, My Friend in Misery are probably, and Struggle Within are probably my favorite songs on here.
So all the non-radio hits, basically.
I mean, I like them all. Like
Yeah.
I love Enter Sandman too, but again, it's just kind of right now today, or when I listen to this album this week, those are now my favorite songs. So kind of, yeah. I mean, I love wherever I may roam, I kind of put on there too, but I didn't want to have too many favorite songs because
Sure.
it's all good. There's nothing on here I would even consider skipping. It's all good. But, nothing else matters. It's a great song. It was a great song when I first heard it. It's still a great song today, but I've just heard it so many times,
Yeah.
right?
There's
Like I
fatigue.
don't blame them for that.
Sure.
I never will blame a band for writing such a great song that I've heard too many times, but it's I've just you know, I almost can't list that as a favorite of mine on this album now because I won't skip it, but I'd just rather hear other songs. So,
Sure.
My Friend
Got
of
it.
Misery has a fantastic bass intro. We've been talking a lot about bass, and that shows Jason Newsted's chops. He's got a songwriting credit on there too. It's the only one on this whole album, but he's got a songwriting credit there because that's a fantastic bass intro. Now, I've also heard that Kirk wrote it, but I'm like, why would Jason Newsted get writing credit on that? If I mean, come on,
Yeah.
I mean it's just a fantastic intro. I do remember I saw them 3 times on this tour. Um, well, touring for this album. There's multiple tours. They toured for like 4 years. They played hundreds of shows off of this album. It's probably Metallica's apex in popularity, I would say. It's probably really not even close. I mean, they're playing stadiums now, yes, but they were so big back then. Like they'd come to Cleveland 4 or 5 times. I don't even think I saw them every time they came here. I saw
Right.
them twice at the Coliseum in Richfield because one time I went, but my brother wanted to go, so I drove him, and and we went a second time, and then I saw him again at Blossom like 2 years later. They came
Right.
back and saw him again. So I mean, I would go see him almost anytime they came here, unless I just couldn't. So it's great too. There's no skippers still, so I'm 5 albums in, not a single skip song, not a single song I would skip. I have this as an A minus, but I have this at number 5. Yeah, it's their most popular of these 5 albums, but it's not my favorite album because it's kind of it's a slight drop off from the Metallica that I knew and loved. So there's some great songs here for sure, but it's kind of it's a half step below the other stuff. So I have this as an A minus. This is number 5. What did you think of the Black Album being your first taste of Metallica?
Yeah, this was my gateway Metallica for sure, and metal in general. I mean, this is it. Like Tyler was saying, it might be metal's beginning, in popularity. I was just a kid that was listening to whatever was popular on the radio, and um, this was my first. Like, I didn't know that they were heavy. To me, I heard all these songs all the time. MTV was huge at the time. The Enter Sandman video was coming out. Um, these are the first times I've ever heard of anything like this. So, definitely I fell in love with it instantly. I remember saving up my money for chores or whatever, and I went to the record store and bought this on CD. My dad had just got a CD player, and like this was the first one that I bought. Like I was going to buy this and listen to it, and I did, and I still have that same copy that I had when I first bought it, and I still love it. I still listen to it. It's all good. Um, I am sick of Enter Sandman, but I will never skip it. I'll never turn it off.
See, yeah, same thing.
So I love all these songs. I think The
Yeah.
Unforgiven is phenomenal.
I'll get to more of that later. Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that one a lot too.
Unforgiven to me is
Yeah.
is just awesome.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, Nothing Else Matters is just a classic. Um, God That Failed is one of my like underrated songs off
Uh-huh.
this. I love that riff. It's so good. Just everything. So yeah, 1 to 12, this is good. Um, at first I kind of thought maybe this was me, pushing this up higher because I have memories with it and all that. But I love these older albums. Like I feel like I've kind of come level with everybody else over the years, and this is number 4 for me. So to me, the three before it beat it out, but to me, you just can't beat everything great about it. The production is, man, it sounds so good. 90,
Yeah.
would you say 92, 91?
91.
Man, this sounds so damn good. It lives up to any album produced today. Like, it still sounds like crystal clear. It's so good. Everything about it. The
Yeah, this one
instruments
stands
sound
the
good.
test of time with that
Yep.
stuff. It doesn't even sound. I mean, it's 33 years old. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like it's 3 years old. Like, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and they still play, 5 of these songs at
Yeah,
every show they do.
yeah.
And,
Even
it,
change them up. Sometimes they play this one. Sometimes they play that one.
yeah, no, absolutely. And they, about 5 years ago, whatever it was, with the 30 years, they played the whole album for a tour. And I thought it was cool. They,
Did
instead
they
of
play it in
playing it,
reverse?
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. They,
Sorry.
instead you're fine.
Yeah.
Instead of playing it, well, we're going to start with Enter.
What a great idea.
They know Enter Sandman is going to be one of their encore songs most
Sure.
nights, so
They
why
start
not
with
play it
Struggle
last?
Within.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So then you got Sad But True and Enter Sandman as the last
Yeah.
two songs. I mean,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Only
It is.
Metallica thinks of something like that. Like,
I
that's
know.
fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, again, it's an A- for me. It's number 4. It just falls just behind the 3 epic albums for me. It's just amazing. I still go back to it, and just so many memories for this album. So
Yeah,
good stuff.
me too.
I still hadn't seen them live yet, so
Okay.
that's coming up.
Okay. It's funny too, because we talked just before the podcast started about how I didn't think this one was going to be that long, because I was like, I don't know, I felt like it was going to be really long, and then I felt like, no, I think we can get through this pretty quick. Well, we've only done 5 albums. We're an hour and 6 minutes in, so maybe it will be that long.
Dude,
but some of these albums are going to go by pretty quick. But
when you gush over, I mean, again, these albums are classic, like legendary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use life changing, because they didn't really change my life, but they changed what I liked in music, which is a huge thing for me. So there's a lot to put into this, and there's a lot of love from both of us for Metallica that we have to get out there. So it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that I should have just went with my original thought, is that this is probably going to be a long one,
and that's okay.
Yep. So here we are. We move on to album number 6, and we have Load, June 4th, 1996. 14 songs on here. We'll get to Reload and how this was going to be a double album, but then wasn't. So this is Bob Rock again, James and Lars again, producing this. This is the first time they tuned down a half step to E flat. They were just straight E tuning for a lot of the time. But I guess Kirk said that it seemed like he would come in with stuff, because he was trying to replicate Hendrix and some other guys that played generally a half step down. And James would kind of sing along with it, but James, he seemed to like to sing along with it. So of course Kirk would try to write stuff because James liked it, so it seemed like it was easier on his voice and whatever. But this album's definitely a further departure from where they once were. The faster paced thrash stuff is kind of gone at this point. It's more kind of hard rock, blues bass, even pop influence in some cases. I mean, they were listening to Oasis, and they were influenced by a lot of different stuff going on, all the grunge stuff that Tyler mentioned earlier. This has a lot of elements of that stuff in it, but they came in with like 30 demos coming into the studio. The recording for this took a year. So it took a year. This is their longest album they've ever put out. It's 78 minutes and 59 seconds, because they told them that they could not put an album out at 79 minutes because the CDs would be prone to skipping in some players, because there's too much fit on the CD itself. So They chopped off a minute of the Outlaw Torn, which is kind of a jam at the end, just to fit it to 78 minutes and 59 seconds. It's the most they could fit on a CD, and they fit every second on there they could.
Yep.
So kudos to them for that. But there's some good songs on here I really do like. But for the first time, there's stuff I don't like on here by them also. The lyrics are dealing more with depression and life problems, drugs and alcohol, rather than politics or other themes on previous albums. Um, there was, there was a lot going on in music at this time, and I don't want to say they tried to copy that, but they tried to Metallica-size what was going on in music and kind of make it fit them, which it didn't really work on a few levels, I don't think. But for like a hard rock album, the problem with this album is it doesn't sound much at all like the Metallica that I grew up falling in love with and just listening to all the time. But for what it is, there's some great songs on here, right? And there's some songs that do still sound kind of like classic Metallica, like Until It Sleeps. It's very similar to Enter Sandman, so there's not much different there, but that's one of my favorite songs on here. But I like House of Jack Built. I like King Nothing is a great song. I love when they play that song live. That's a fantastic song. Bleeding Me is another great song. It's long, but it kind of meanders around. It's a great song. And I like Wasting My Hate because it's kind of like it's a heavier, almost like a Kill 'Em All type song, I feel like, on here. Now, as I'm listening through this and I got to Hero of the Day was the song, the first one where I was like, what the F is this? Like, I didn't get it. I don't know. Do you ever have a song like that you don't really like, but it sticks in your head? Like,
Yeah,
Metallica has a couple of those for me, and this is one of them. Like the song, it's an earworm. It sticks in your mind, but I don't really like it. And this is the first when I first heard this song, I'm like, what are they doing? Like the rest of it sounded a little different too, but 2x4 is still kind of heavy, and Ain't My Bitch is kind of heavy, but then I get to Hero of the Day, and I'm like, I really like House of Jack Built, Until It Sleeps, and King Nothing are all right in a row. And then I get to Hero of the Day, and I'm like, I don't understand. This is Metallica? Like, I don't understand. Did somebody else write this? I don't understand it. So that was my first skipper. I still to this day don't really like that song. Yes, it does stick in my head, but Poor Twisted Me is another one that sticks in my head. I don't like that song. I don't, but it sticks in my head. So the reverbed, echoey guitar in the beginning of it, just that riff, I don't know why it sticks in my head, but I really don't like it. Mama Said I don't like Ronnie. So there's 4 skippers on here for me. Yeah, there's 14 songs. But there's 4 skippers on here for me. So I have this as a B. There's still a lot on here I really like. I still have it as a B. I have this mid tier. This is number 6 for me. So I had the first 5 and then 6th album. This is number 6.
Wow.
There are some songs I really like. I actually don't like when people bash this album so much because that comes from, I feel like that's kind of groupthink. Like that comes from so many people saying they don't like it, but we're talking about people who never listened to the first 4 or 5 albums saying that they don't like this album because it doesn't sound like early Metallica. I'm like, what are you talking about? You weren't even alive when those other albums came out, like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I feel like that a lot of that's kind of overblown groupthink, and I feel like that's kind of gone away over time. I think people respect this album more now than they did back then because it was just such a shock and such a departure for what Metallica was to what they've become here. Now the next album I'm not as happy about, but this one I didn't mind it. It's just I finally got to some songs I would skip, but there's still 14 songs. There's a lot of good stuff on here. So I have this as number 6. What did you think of Load?
Well, color me surprised. I thought me bringing Load to the table was going to be a hot take that I was going to have to defend myself. Man, I love this album. So
not to me.
So I do. And our friend Brian, I try to defend this all the time, and John on our buddies on the other podcast. Both of them like turn their nose up at
the Talking to Infinity podcast.
Guys. Talking to Infinity. I mean, 95, this came out. I was a freshman in high school. I was like ripe for the taking, and I had just fell in love with this band. I was obsessed. So I was waiting for this album to come out. And man, it did not disappoint with me at all. I get the argument. If you're going to stand pat and say, you know what, this isn't Master of Puppets, like, hell no, it's not Master of Puppets, like, in no way, shape, or form. But you got to remember what was coming out in the 90s. Like, this is like the height of grunge. This is the height of, those type of things. Like, there was no metal. Nobody was making good metal albums in the mid 90s. That even Slayer was making, like, their new metal albums. This is like when Korn was coming out. Like, this, at this point in time, nobody was making anything like Master of Puppets. So this was of its time, and they were awesome at doing it. Like, they made this, like, type of music. They kind of made the bro genre, the whole the grumble, what do they call those lyrics, like the Creed lyrics. And like, I feel like this kind of took the lead in all those type of things. So I love Load. I have so many good memories of this. This is me driving around in a car with my friends. Like, for the first time, we blared this. I don't hate any songs on this album. I wouldn't even say I would skip any of the songs. I don't love Mama Said. I think it's a little too weird for me, a little too country for me. But other than that, man, I can find something I like in all these songs. Ain't My Bitch is awesome. I love the solos in 2x4. It's real, almost groove metal. Like, a lot of this stuff is more groove metal than just like awesome stuff. So, how you mentioned House of Jack built. I think Until It Sleeps is a phenomenal song.
Yeah.
You hit King Nothing. It's heavy as heck.
Love King Nothing.
Riff is good. I like Hero of the Day. I get what you're saying. I didn't like it initially. That beginning is weird. It does get heavy in the middle.
Yeah, it does.
It's
in
okay.
a weird heavy way, though. Like a forced kind of heavy. You know what I mean? That it felt like it was like they knew that this song was a little off, and they kind of forced it to be heavy in the middle.
Yeah.
It's weird. It just doesn't sound natural, but I don't know.
I totally get it. I think Bleeding Me is phenomenal.
I love that song. I love that song.
Wasting My Hate. They played that live when I saw. So that kind of loops into this. So Load was the first time I ever seen them. They were here 2 nights at the Gund Arena, it was called at the time.
I was there.
So me and my buddies waited outside the ticket office at the Gund. They were doing a lottery, and we won the lot. Like, we were like the 3rd number called.
Whoa!
So we got front row seats. So we were up against the if you remember,
the giant stage. Yeah, there was like
a circle stage in the middle,
4 people deep all the way around. But yeah, you could. There was a lot of stage to stand next to. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so first time I ever seen Metallica, I was right up against the metal. It was the first night. I think it was the Friday night.
Yeah, and
then we were hanging around outside before the show, and if you remember, they did. No, maybe this was for Reload. I can't remember. They did the coffee break concert. It was at the Odeon. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was Reload. Yeah,
Reload. Okay, so that comes later. But we were hanging out for some show downtown, and we ended up getting tickets to that coffee whatever show where they played like 6 or 7 songs.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Although I remember listening to it on the radio because I tried to get tickets, and there was no getting tickets for that unless, like you said, you just lucked into them or whatever.
Yep.
So, I mean, the Odeon, you have to know, if you don't know the Odeon, it holds about 900 to 1,000 people. So I saw Slayer once there, and the fire department almost shut it down because they had 1,200 people crammed in there, and it was chaos. Like, you couldn't even move in there.
Yeah, that's what this was.
There was way too many people. But I remember listening to it on WMMS and recorded it, and I was disappointed that they only played like 6 songs. I'm like, man, really, that was it? But that's the coffee break concerts were only an hour. That was the whole idea.
Yes.
It was like a lunch break. It was noon to 1. That was it. So
that happened.
But that's
too,
awesome. You got to experience that.
Yeah, in first time seeing them being front row was just man, it was like a dream come true. And again, that all fed into the worshiping this band, and they couldn't do anything wrong, and it really helped with loving this album. I built a love for it right away, and kind of stuck with it. So this is my number 5 favorite album from Metallica. It is above Kill 'Em All.
Okay.
I have Kill 'Em All at 6, Load at 5. That's, I think, the big difference here.
I can understand that, though, but yeah.
It's a B for me, and, man, I just even listened to it this week. Man, I was just bobbing my head. I love this stuff.
I got a little ticket story for this one, too. my buddy and I went and saw Silverchair at the Odeon, which we were just talking about.
Yep.
And my buddy and I, like, I'm 6'2", my buddy's 6'1", whatever. I swear we were the tallest, oldest people at the Silverchair show, right? So we're at Silverchair, and we're talking to the dude next to us, and he goes, "Hey," and Metallica was the next night. He goes, "Hey, are you going to Metallica?" We're like, "No, like, I don't know, we just didn't get tickets or whatever." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "My buddy has a few tickets if you want to get some tickets for that." And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "All right, well, give me your number." So we called him the next day. I called my brother because he had 3 tickets. So me and my buddy and my brother, I'm like, "Hey, do you want to go see Metallica tonight?" He goes, "Hell yeah!" So I drove down to Chippewa, which is an hour south of where I lived, and went to this dude's house again with cash. Gave him cash. He gave me 3 tickets. You don't even know if these tickets are going to work back then.
Right. Yep.
So, but they're paper tickets. So he gives me these 3 Ticketmaster tickets or Ticketron, whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
And we go to the show. We went downtown. We went to this bar that had like I remember they had like a hot dog warmer, like it's kind of like this is Limp Bizkit all over again, right? Like chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water. There's this big vat of water, and they had buns and ketchup and mustard and all these hot dogs in this water, like pre-show for Metallica. So we're in there, we're shooting some pool. I caught my jeans on a nail on the side of this bowling machine. It ripped a big hole in my jeans at my knee, so my jeans were flopped open. Like, I'll never forget this stuff. It's crazy.
Right.
So I got tickets the same day for this concert, and it was fantastic. They were in the 3rd row on the side. I didn't know that the stage was the entire floor till I got there. They were in the 3rd row on the side, so I'm like above the people on the floor. I could see over them, but still the stage is right in front of me. It was fantastic. It was a great show.
Yep.
So I'll never forget that one either. So it's just funny sometimes you just luck into stuff like you did with the coffee break concert.
Yeah.
Like I just happened to be standing next to some kid, some that I don't know, just talking to him out of nowhere. He asked about Metallica. He happens to have extra tickets. I'm like, how does this stuff even happen, right?
Yeah, right.
So it was fantastic though. So I'm glad that you had a great time, and maybe you were standing 2 rows away from me, 3 rows away from me. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Awesome, just awesome stuff. So, all right. So I have this at 6. You have it at 5, right? And we both have it as B. So we pretty much have it rated the same. So I'm glad you are shocked, but I'm open minded when it comes to Metallica.
Yes, you are. I like it.
So then we get to Reload. So basically, there's 13 songs on here. They came in with 30 demo songs into the studio for Load. These songs were not finished per se. Some of them I think were, but they kind of continued to work on them while they were touring, like in between, because they already had all these songs written pretty much. So it kind of feels to me, though, kind of feels like a B-side group of songs to me, except for a couple. Mm-hmm. So there are a couple really good songs in here, but for the most part, kind of feels like B-sides, kind of more like experimental, like stuff that they just didn't want to put on the first album, the first Load album. So this is the last studio album with Jason Newsted, also, who left the band in January 2001. This, as I would mentioned before, this originally meant as a double album, but they decided to split them up because they felt like after 5 years, yeah, they had a lot of songs, but they didn't want it. They felt like it was too much for people. Like they didn't want to drop 27 songs on people all at once and then tour for it. They just felt it was a better idea to drop half of them, tour, drop the other half, continue to tour, because that's all they did. They wrote songs, they recorded, and they toured. They hardly ever take breaks, these guys, back then. So my favorites are Fuel on this one. It's one of the better songs on both albums, to be honest.
Yep.
So it's like they saved one. They're like, all right, let's save one of these songs. But you mentioned The Unforgiven. That's now, I don't think Unforgiven 2 is a better song than Unforgiven, but it is one of my favorite ones on this album because there's not a whole lot on this album that I really love. So, but I do like that one a lot. So I got Fuel, Memory Remains, which is another one that this is the first guest appearance by any singer on any Metallica album. So Marianne Faithfull is on here singing, and I do like that song. It's kind of an earworm. This is a song too I didn't like at first, but because I was like, man, what they got this this woman singing on here. What is this? La, la, da, 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 and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
So, but the more I hear it, the more I kind of liked it. Like Hero of the Day, that never happened for me, but this song kind of grew on me, and I like it. It's got a good riff. It's catchy. It sticks in my head, and I kind of like it. So, and I like Devil's Dance a lot. That's a very underrated song. I'm not sure if I've ever seen them play that song live. Maybe on this tour, but other than that, I don't think they've ever played Devil's Dance live. And that's a really good song too. Starts out with a great bass riff. Also,
I saw it at the Coffee Break concert.
They played that there.
They did.
I don't remember the 6 songs. Like I said, I have it recorded somewhere. I'll dig it up someday.
It's Last Caress, King Nothing, Devil's Dance, Wasting My Hate, Hero of the Day, Whiplash, and Motor Breath. That's what those were.
So they only played. So this was 4 Reload, and they only played 1 song out of the 6 off of it. So that's kind of funny.
Yep.
But the skippers for me though on this one are pretty much the rest of the album. I don't like a lot of it on here. I really don't. This is C plus for me. This is kind of mid tier. This is number 10 out of 11 for me. There's a few good songs here, but I feel like the better material was on the first of the 2 albums, save for a couple songs. What did you think of Reload?
Man, get off of my sheet, dude. What the heck, man?
Sorry.
So I almost put this at 11. That shows kind of
can't. Now with the next one, it's coming up. You can't.
But
everybody knows what your 11 is.
I understand that, but I was tempted because listening, I felt worse about this one and better about the other one listening to it this time.
Really?
But still, I didn't change the order. This is number 10 for me, and I have it as a D. Which, as a Metallica album, for me to give it a D, man, it just, to me, it doesn't live up to it. I agree with you. It took the words out of my mouth. These are, so the first 4 songs of this are killer. I love Fuel. I love Memory Remains, Devil's Dance, Unforgiven 2. After that, man, it is.
Those are the first 4 songs that I have on my list, but then 4 songs on the album. I didn't even realize that.
I do like Slither. I agree with Tyler on that. Slither's okay. And I actually like the last song, Fixer. I think it has some cool stuff in it.
Didn't they just start playing that when I read? I think just recently, like they played one of them, Carpe Diem Baby. They played I think 2011.
Yeah.
And then 2021. So it's kind of an anniversary, I think, of this album.
Maybe.
Sort of, kind of. I don't even know. But 2011, I read they played Carpe Diem Baby for the first time. And they played Fixer for the first time in 2021. So
okay.
Anyway,
I do like a lot of the other stuff, though, other than those first 4, Slither and Fixer, all right on my paper. These sounds like B-sides from Load. And they sound almost cheesy and forced. And it sounds like Better Than You. I don't know, man. Carpe Diem, Bad Seed,
Prince Charming, Where the Wild Things Are.
Hey Ma, Look, It's Me. Like this isn't Metallica to me.
No.
So it's about half good and half like really, really not good to me. So I'm right along with you. I have it 10 out of 11 and a D, and I just probably will never come back to this other than those 4 killer songs, and I'll just mix it in on a playlist with other stuff. So I'm with you. We're right on right beside each other, and we're not going to discuss it, but I just want to kind of shout out real quick. This was right about the time that Garage Inc. came out.
That was 1988. It was the next year. Fantastic.
I love that. I go back to that all the time. I think the covers are great.
Yeah.
I like how they added all the old stuff on there that they played throughout the years, all the covers, the Diamond Head stuff, the Am I Evil, and the last the
Garage Days revisited stuff from 1987, I believe, right before and Justice for All came out. They put that out. It was the first thing they put out, like you said, was Garage Days revisited, and it had 6 songs on it, and those are on there, but they're on this one too. Dude, I'm telling you, one of the best covers ever made was Turn the Page by Metallica. Like, all this band does is record and tour, and Turn the Page it's about touring. Like, they should have wrote that song. It's a fantastic cover. It's better than the original one.
Yeah.
I will stop and listen to that every time it's on. I love that cover. I love it. And it's on that Garage Days.
Yeah, see, to me, like, Metallica's just like fans, man. They're just,
Yeah.
It's a band of just I love music, I love bands, and they're like a cover. They're like the biggest cover band in the
Yeah.
world. They
And they're
do
doing covers of songs you've
phenomenal.
never heard too, and you're like, "This is fantastic." Like "Bread Fan," like I'd
Yep.
never heard "Bread Fan" is an awesome song. And
Blitzkrieg,
I would have never heard
phenomenal.
those songs. Yes, same thing. "Am I Evil?" I'd have never heard any of these songs if they
Yeah.
hadn't covered them.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just every cover, basic. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Whiskey in the Jarro, but
Yeah.
everything else is pretty awesome. The Merciful Fate thing is
Oh yeah,
so damn good.
yeah.
Like
Oh
it's
man.
so good. But yeah, so I just had to throw that in there because I just think it's when they release that, I listen to that as much as I listen to
Oh,
Reload.
I
Uh,
listen to it more than Reload. I'll tell
Sure,
you that
sure.
right
By
now.
the end of it, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I mean, up to today, yeah, a lot more
Yep.
than Reload. But yeah, that's a fantastic cover album. Thanks for bringing that up because I
Yep.
wanted to mention that too. I will mention another one that's not a cover album; it's originals. We'll bring that up really shortly here in a
Okay.
second too, that we're not going to review. But my God, is that awful? Talking
Yep.
about getting an F.
Yep.
That is an F, and from
Yep.
Metallica. That's shocking. But anyway, here we go. Say Anger. This is 5.5 years later. 11 songs. June 5th, 2003. This is Bob Rock and Metallica produced again. This album has the weirdest, most shocking production I've ever heard. I couldn't believe it when I heard it.
Same,
I
yeah.
still think it. I still hate the production to this day. I cannot believe they didn't fix it. Like it's absolutely awful sounding album. It's the first album with Robert Trujillo from Suicidal Tendencies on bass, replacing Jason Newsted.
I don't think he played on the record though. I think that was
Uh,
Bob Rock.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. So
Yeah, he
this is
joined the band right after for the
any
disc
writing
tour,
credits?
but
I don't think so.
yeah, I think
Yeah, I
yeah,
know I saw him live. It was a summer sanitarium tour.
yep.
The only time I saw him for this album, I went to Detroit to see it to the Pontiac Silverdome, which is no longer there, and that was Lincoln Park, and it was Mudvayne and Limp Bizkit, and which Limp Bizkit at the time was not putting out really good stuff, but it was still kind of cool to see them. And even though I'd seen them when they were really good many times before, but it was just a great show all around. Metallica played. I remember it was hot as hell in there because they didn't have any air conditioning. It was in August or July. It was super hot. There was no air inside this dome. Yeah, it was all shaded because there was a dome, but it was just hot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the production's terrible. The songs do sound better live, I got to be honest.
Much
So,
better live.
so,
Yes.
I mean, the songs really could be better if they didn't sound like that. And I can't believe they won't put it out with better sound, but they won't do it. Um, there's some much documented inner turmoil going on within the band at this time, and they put out some kind of monster documentary kind of about the making of this album. And this was the band almost called it quits at this point. It almost ended the band. They had the Napster stuff going on, the Napster fight. There was addiction, and James is trying to be sober, and he's trying to follow this path. And Lars is like, "You've changed, and you're not the same person." And there was just all this infighting. If you watch the documentary, it's all in there. I can't believe they put that out. I give them a lot of credit for putting that stuff out there, though, because there's a lot of stuff in there that you, being a super popular rock band with big kind of egos, you wouldn't want people to see, but they put it all out there, man. They don't
Yeah,
care.
they did.
So
Yep.
it's good stuff, but well, not good, but cool that they put it out for everybody to see. Um, there's no solos on here. There's
Yeah.
no guitar solos. It's new metal garbage. Like it's not even as good as new metal stuff that was out at the time. At least the Loads actually had like an album's worth of really good songs.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a total struggle to listen to for me. I know my one buddy Rob still swears that he's like he likes it more than everybody I've ever known. But even he can't tell you this is a great album, but he does love some of these songs, and I just really don't. So my favorites, maybe the first three songs, maybe,
Yeah.
Frantic, Saint Anger, Some Kind of Monsters, probably really the only song here I really like. The skippers are all the rest of it. This is a D for me. This is the bottom of the barrel. This is lower tier, but only because we're not rating the other one. Um, which we'll talk about in a minute. I don't like most of the songs. I hate the production. I have no idea what they were thinking. This feels like to me now. This kind of popped in my head while I was listening to it this week. This feels like a middle finger to all the fans of the band in the world. That's what it feels like to me. Because it
Yeah.
sounds like shit, the songs are shit, and it feels like they're just like, you know what? We're Metallica. We can do whatever we want. Here's
Yeah.
here's a big middle finger for you. That's
Right.
what it actually felt like. I'm sure that's not the way they meant it because there's not many bands out there that are more about their fans than Metallica is. But this one felt like they were just giving me a middle finger. I'm like, what is this garbage?
Yeah.
And you know what? I still paid, I don't know, $80 a ticket and drove to Detroit to see him. So
Right.
who's laughing at the end of that? They are, I guess. But I don't know. It's just, man, for a band I love, I felt like this was just a big kind of F you.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to this, to be honest with you. You've kind of covered it all. It sounds horrible. The snare is just it sounds like a joke that nobody's laughing at the punchline.
No,
It's bad.
not funny, man.
When I just seen him at I seen him in Pittsburgh before 72 Seasons came out. This was like 3 years ago. They played Dirty Window, which I found a new appreciation for that song because I thought it sounded great. So I'll add Dirty Window in there as a cool song just because they played it live, and he made a joke about it when he came out. He's like, yeah, so we made an album you guys don't like very much. And he's like, Saint Anger. He's like, what'd you guys think of it? And he's like, you guys can be honest. Tell me what you guys thought of it. And everybody's like cheering and booing. And he's like, well, we're going to play a song off of it, and hopefully you guys like it. And they played Dirty Window, and I think it sounded pretty cool. So
yeah, and Frantic is some kind of monster, even Saint Anger, like if they play those songs, when they play them live, they sound pretty good.
They're not pretty good. Yeah.
Bad songs. There's not really other real good songs on here, but when the production's right, they're not that bad. It's just, man.
Yeah. Well, and they put out that second disc. If you were one of the people that bought Saint Anger like I did, you got that second disc. It had like live.
Yeah.
They played Some Kind of Monster live, and it sounded good with Robert on there. That sounded great.
Yeah, it was in like their Metallica headquarters, like, with the banners in the background. Yeah, I have that with that CD, and I won't listen to the CD now. I'll watch that instead. Because it does sound way better.
So yeah, I've seen Frantic live. I've seen Saint Anger live, and that Some Kind of Monster, Dirty Window. And I to me that just shows me the songs aren't terrible. The songs are there. They just sound like crap because of the album. So yeah, not really much more to add. It's number 11 for me. Like I said, I did have a thought where I was like, do I like this? Maybe the songs a little better than Reload, and I might. I mean, that's the thing. I might like the songs.
It's close, yeah.
But
there's maybe 4 on both of them, right? So
right,
it's close.
But the production on Reload, it just blows it away. So so there's really no competition there. So I thought about it, but I couldn't do it. So. Yeah, this is number 10 and a D minus. I'm sorry, number 11 and D minus. So Reload was 10, Saint Anger was 11.
And then somewhere in here, I want to say it was 2004, they put out an album with Lou Reed called Lulu, which is an F. I mean, it is the worst thing you'll ever hear. Now, I guess they met Lou Reed, and they're kind of big fans of him. And he really wanted to do an album with him as he was getting older. And they're like, okay. And they just went and wrote some songs and they put it out. And it was absolutely awful. So
it just sounds out of place.
Oh, it's not only out of place. I mean, the lyrics are weird. And it's just, I mean, I actually still have a meme picture that I put as a wallpaper every now and then with James saying I am the table, and it's like his face on a kitchen table. Like that's actually the lyrics of some of the songs. Like I am the table. Like, are you kidding me? Like, so it's just it's awful. But I'm
wondering if somebody that's a real big fan of Velvet Underground, I wonder what they think of it. I mean, I wonder if because I only know the one song of Velvet Underground, what the Walk on the Wild Side. That's the only song I could ever name by them. So. That's a fine song. Like it's okay, but I'm just wondering if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of Velvet Underground." I wonder if I would like that. But for a Metallica fan or somebody into metal, I mean, it's just the weirdest thing ever. So
yeah, it's not good. But the production's way better than Saint Anger.
Yeah,
so there's that. But the songs are so bad. So anyway, we move on to 2008. So now we're getting to really long drags in between albums here. This is over 5 years. This is Rick Rubin produced. Rick Rubin's style is he wants songs complete as much as possible before entering the studio. It's not the way Metallica normally do things, but they love Rick Rubin, and so do we all, right? So Beastie Boys, Slayer, it's Rick Rubin's definitely made a name for himself by 2008, so they wanted to work with him. They made a significant effort to get back to kind of their old sound. The songs are longer. There's more guitar driven, more kind of dual guitar stuff. They're definitely trying to get back to thrash and more heavy than what was on the Load albums. I pretty much I like this album. Now I know I have friends that liked it when it first came out, and revisiting it, they didn't like it as much, and they're like, "This album doesn't hold up." For me, this album does hold up. Like, I like a lot of these songs, and this is the one where I went back to, and I'm like, "Man, I really like this song. Man, I really like this song." Now, Unforgiven 3, like, I just can't turn that song off. Like, the first 90 seconds, it's so, like, emotional. There's piano. There's, like, it's not Metallica-like at all. But it just hooks me in, and I cannot turn it off. Like, I love it. I don't know why. I just can't turn it off. So, I hate, though, the production on this one, too. Like, I don't know what causes this. But this is a Rick Rubin thing, too, because we've mentioned this before.
Yep.
And other podcasts. Like, the compression causes this distortion while you're listening to it, no matter the volume you're trying to listen to. When you turn it up, it sounds even worse.
It's clipping. So it's like it clips.
Clipping, and it's distorted. It doesn't sound right. And I would love to hear this without that. Like, I need to go find an uncompressed version of this album and download it and listen to it.
It exists.
Because I love some of these songs, and I like a lot of them. So there's not really anything on here that I would skip, except for some of them feel a little long, and I want to skip them partway through. Like, I still like them, but I'm like, okay, this is kind of dragging on. I want to skip it like halfway through. Suicide and Redemption is one for me. Like, we talked about their instrumentals. They write great instrumentals, but this one is like 10 minutes long, and I want to skip it like halfway through. So, but I don't necessarily dislike it. So my favorites on this one, I just hate that compression and distortion. Yep. And this is the only album that shows up on. So I just don't understand what causes that. And I don't know why they would put that out like that. And they had to know, right? They had to know.
Yep.
So some of these songs were written as early as 2004, like 4 years before this came out. The songs began to take shape. This has kind of been a trend, like 4 or 5 years before the album actually comes out. They're actually writing songs. They narrowed 25 songs down to 14 to record, and there ended up only 10 on here. But it's still a pretty long album, 74 minutes, and only 10 songs. My favorites are Broken Beat and Scarred. All Nightmare Long I like a lot. I don't really kind of like the beginning of it. Once it gets to the chorus, it just hooks me in and I can't turn it off. I like Cyanide a lot. Unforgiven 3 I just mentioned. That's a fantastic song. And that one is 7 minutes and 47 seconds. Like, every song on here is longer than My Apocalypse is the last one. It's 5 minutes. Everything else is 6:25 and longer. So a lot of really long songs on here. And the instrumental is almost 10 minutes. It's 3 seconds short of 10 minutes. It's just way too long. But I do like Judas Kiss also. They still play Judas Kiss. They play like usually one song off of here live. Now they'll play Cyanide, Judas Kiss, Broken Beat, and Scarred. One of these 3-4 songs they'll play live, but that's about it, if you even get one. My rating on this one is a B. This one is a 7. So this is just behind Load, which is just behind the Black Album. So this isn't too far off for me. The distortion is awful, but this is definitely better than the last 2 albums, which are St. Anger and Reload, but still far away from their greatness. But I do like the song structure. This feels more like Metallica to me, finally. What did you think of Death Magnetic?
Yeah, I'm along the same lines as you. I like this album. I loved it when it first came out.
And even going back, you still liked it? Yeah, same for me.
I still like it.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't sure, actually. It's been a while since I listened to it.
Yeah. Well, so basically where I have the albums ranked, I had 7, 8, and 9 left over for these last 3 albums. So this one's right.
What a surprise.
Right. This one is right in the middle for me. This one is actually 8.
Okay.
But it's good. I like it. It's a B- for me. Um, I just there's not really bad songs on here. I really like it. I saw this tour. I know we talked about it. We were talking about Lamb of God opening for
Oh
them on
yeah,
this tour.
yeah, it was
Um,
fantastic.
so it was a fantastic show. I remember the Cleveland show they played. I don't know if you remember the day that never comes. The speaker blew up or whatever on it,
Yeah, yeah.
and they stopped and
They had to
to like,
lower. There's like a
yep,
lighting rig problem or something too. They had
yep,
to lower this thing down, and they had a roadie guy had to come out and fix stuff. Like it was a good
yep,
10, 15 minutes. It was a long time.
yep,
I feel like we could have got 2 or 3 more songs out of them, but or at least 2.
yeah,
But it took a long time to repair whatever it is that broke. But hey, at least it wasn't. And I didn't mention the story for the Black Album tour with Guns N' Roses because I mentioned it in the Guns N' Roses
right,
podcast. I was going to bring it up,
yeah,
but I mentioned it then, so you have to go back and listen for that. But at least it wasn't that where James actually had something happen to him because
right.
it was right above where James was singing. So I don't know if something was about to fall or
Ugh,
what, but at least it was, nothing happened. So
right. Yeah, good stuff. I like pretty much everything on it. Judas Kiss for me isn't the greatest. Suicide and Redemption is okay. Everything else I really like though. I really like Broken Beat and Scarred, like you said. All Nightmare Long is like top 15 Metallica songs for me. I love All Nightmare Long.
yeah,
It's the one standout for me on this album that just kind of rises above everything else. Um, just I love when they it's kind of the one redeeming quality they have in these last couple albums is sometimes they go off on a tangent with these guitar parts and I dig it, man. I just
yeah.
really get into it.
You're like,
And-
go,
yeah,
yeah, let's
right.
go.
It's like
Taking
you
you on
go,
on
man.
a tour, like it's great.
Yeah, but I do like this a lot. So it's right in the middle of the 3 new ones for me, but it's good. All these are good, but the last 2, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, those last 2 albums were easy to rank as last, but everything else is good. I mean,
Yeah,
they're in this pocket now
yeah,
where they're not trying to do too much. They know what they do now. They know how old they are and where they're at. They're in that pocket. I love where they're at. So this started it where solid album and they're just going to keep releasing solid albums as far as I'm concerned.
yep. And as you just said, Hardwired to Self Destruct came out November 18th, 2016. Now we're talking 8 years
Yep.
between albums. 8 years and 2 months. That's an eternity. Like they couldn't get one out in 4 years and 4 years. I mean, come on, man.
Right.
Like these guys aren't going to be able to do this forever. And like you said, is they're putting out good stuff. Just
Yep.
don't take 8 years to do it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one's almost 7 years. So like, come on, man. We could have got 5 albums in this time instead of 3 easily.
Yeah.
If you're anybody else. So, but it's not. It's Metallica. So anyway, Hardware to Self Destruct, November 18th, 2016. 12 songs. Greg Fiddleman produced along with James and Lars, which I feel like it's kind of just James and Lars at this point.
Yep.
But Greg Fiddleman's name's on it also. The next 2 albums are the same as far as production goes. Started writing in 2011. Took 5 more years to come out. Like, again, I don't know why you couldn't get this out in 2013. I don't know. This feels like a continuation of Death Magnetic to me, although for me, it's not quite as good.
Right.
It's not bad, but this is a half step below what I feel like Death Magnetic was. It does not have the compression distortion problem, which is good because I think that's a Rick Rubin thing, and I don't know why. I just
Yep.
don't. We've talked about it before with him too. I don't know why. Kirk lost his cell phone. Kirk Hammett lost his cell phone in the Copenhagen airport. He had 250 plus riffs on this phone with no backup. So this is the first album since Kill 'Em All
No
that
writing
he
credit.
has no songwriting credits. Exactly. So that's pretty shocking. And it kind of makes me feel like had that not happened, maybe this album would be better than Death Magnetic.
Maybe.
Maybe the stuff that he had was really good because like you said, they're in this good pocket now. And this kind of feels like a continuation of the last album. So it's not that far off. So it's really not far off, I don't think, to say that this actually could have been better if they didn't lose some of the ideas 250 riffs, that's a lot.
Yeah.
There had to be some really good stuff in there, at least a few, right?
Right.
So My favorites here are Hardwired, Now That We're Dead, Moth into Flame, and I really like Confusion. I don't like a lot after the first 4 songs or so, but I do really like Confusion for some reason. It's I don't know. I just think it's a good
Yeah,
song.
you like it.
So, but I don't really like. I know people like Spit Out the Bone. I don't really know why.
I'll tell you why.
I let me tell you why.
I freaking love that song.
Yeah, I don't really care for that one. Even this time, I like every time I hear it because people tell me like, "Yeah, you don't like Spit Out the Bone." I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
So I try, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just it
Yeah,
doesn't catch with me. So I like. I mean, I even like Atlas Rise. There's. I think the second half for me is kind of skippers, except for Confusion, though, really, because Man Unkind I didn't really like. Am I Savage? Murder One, even Spit Out the Bone. I don't know. It's a B minus for me though. I have this at 9, so I have it a couple spots below Death Magnetic, but I have it at a B minus. I had that one at a B, so it just feels like there's just more filler on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one really strong album out of the last 2, but it's still way better than Saint Anger and Reload. So it's not bad. I don't hate it. I don't love a lot of the songs, but at least it sounds like Metallica. So
Yeah.
what did you think of Hardwired and Spit Out the Bone? Obviously,
Yeah. They made this a double album, and I don't even think it needed to be because it's shorter than
yeah,
the last couple, Death Magnetic, and then I think Load was longer too.
yeah,
Anyway,
77 minutes, I think. Yeah,
so they could have fit it on one disc.
yeah, they could have.
And so it made it easy for me to pretty much not ever pull out disc 2 because I'm with you. I
Okay.
think disc 1 is very strong. I like Hardwired, Atlas Rise, Moth into Flame. I love that song more probably because they play it live and it sounds phenomenal.
It does.
They have the
I wish they played
graphics and
Confusion
stuff.
live. I don't think I've ever heard him play that one,
No, me either.
but I've seen him. I think twice since this album came out.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, for me, it Spit Out the Bone. I think is phenomenal. It fits what I was talking about before, where it's just okay. I like the riff, but then the verses and stuff, they're okay. They're negligible. But when that middle section where the guitars are just going at each other, that's the pass. I love that passage. So once you get past the second verse and they go into the breakdown of the song, that whole section right there, that's my pocket.
Yeah, the problem is that's the only part of the song I like at all.
Yeah,
So I
get
just
it.
that's why the rest of it I just can't get into. But I like that one part, which is a minute 90 seconds of the 7-minute and 10-second song. So
Yeah.
I can't.
Well,
I don't skip it, but
Yeah.
it's just not. It's not one that I really like on this one, which everybody seems shocked by, and I'm like, I don't know, I just don't like it.
dude,
They still play it live, I guess. But
you like what you like.
Yep.
See, it's easy for me because I'm skipping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs to get to Spit Out the Bone. So,
sure, yeah.
but I
so
mean,
for me, it's the opposite. Like I'm playing the first one, skipping the rest. You're
Yeah.
skipping the other ones and playing the last one. So
exactly. So
makes it easy.
But this is good. This is my least favorite of the new 3, just because of
Same.
disc 2 just being weak. I don't ever go back to it. I think basically all the good songs you could basically use off the first disc. So it's a half good album to me, and that's reflected in the rankings. That's why it's third to last. So it's 9 for me, but it's a C plus. It's still good. The good stuff is good. Just the forgettable stuff is forgettable. So just didn't really live up to me. First time I listened to it all the way through, I was like, man, this is phenomenal. And then every time I listened to it, I just kind of dwindled it down to what I like. And
kind of the same for me. It doesn't hold up for me like it did when it first came out. And again, because 8 years, you're like, oh my God, a new Metallica album. This is fantastic. It's Metallica.
Right.
It sounds like Metallica. Like, of course, like you're excited, but then it's just not one I come back to because that often. It's just for a few songs because it's just not all good. But I did love it when it first came out because there was no other Metallica to listen to. So
yeah.
We're always prisoners to Metallica putting out material. So
that's right.
So we got almost 7 more years till 72 seasons, which is called 72 seasons because that's 4 seasons a year. and 18 years of your life. So this is basically your formative years until you're an adult. And I kind of like that actually for an album title. Hardwired to Self-Destruct, by the way, is a passage that James heard somebody say that he felt like that he was hardwired to self-destruct, and James thought about it and he thought, no, that's it's just kind of an interesting name too. He feels like that you're on this path that you're constantly trying not to go down this path that you're hardwired to go down, that you're
Right.
hardwired to go to and self-destruct, but you're trying for your whole life not to go down that path. Well, 72 seasons is kind of the same thing. It's your formative years all the way up till you're an adult, and this kind of what made you who you are. Well, then you have to steer yourself from there to make sure you don't go down the wrong path. So it's a lot of the same stuff, but it's pretty good. I like the deep thoughts like behind that too. Which is one of the things that's always drawn me to Metallica is they have intelligent lyrics. Like it makes you think. You know,
Yeah.
when you sit down, you can just sit down and read the lyrics and not even listen to the song, and it makes you think a little bit. You know, it's intelligent. It's not dumb. It's not it's Limp Bizkit ends up being kind of dumb. You know, I did it all for the nookie. You know,
Right.
it's almost too easy. Like Metallica doesn't do easy.
Yeah.
Like they make it more like intelligent. I love that. Like it
Yeah.
challenges me to think. You know, not only do I love the music, but it makes the lyrics make me think. So
Yep.
and the album titles. But Kirk said that he overcompensated. He had so much material ready for this album because he lost his phone for the last one. So I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't realize that he felt that he overcompensated, and this is a relatively new album, so I didn't know a lot of the detail stuff, but I thought that was kind of funny. He's got 4 writing credits on here, so he's back to contributing to a Metallica album. James said that their existence is either touring or writing, and COVID kind of chose for them on this album, which I'm like, well, that's good because it was almost 7 years. So good thing for COVID, or we might have to wait till 2025 or 26 for this to come out.
Yep.
So thank you, COVID, for getting a new Metallica album out. But he also said that the writing and recording felt glacial to him. Again, it's something that makes you think, right? Like, who says that something feels glacial because it's so slow? You know, I'm like, that's fantastic.
Right.
Like they're smart dudes. I feel like James found a good groove to sing in on this album. Like on Hardwired, it seemed like he was more strained, like he was
Yeah.
trying too hard. Like he's got a really good pocket
Yeah.
on this album. His voice sounds great, and it sounds more kind of like the angry, angsty James from kind of, Justice for All ish, like he's not trying to sing too much. He's just getting it out and going along with the music that's being played. And I really like that. So
Yep.
they definitely have that. Now, I don't love all the songs, but I felt like he was stretching his range too far, and doing something like this and hopefully going forward maybe could extend him being able to sing better. And we didn't even bring up the whole John Bush thing back in the Ride the Lightning days when they were looking for another singer, because James didn't even know. He's like, I don't really want to sing. I just want to write riffs and play guitar. So they tried to really hard to talk John Bush into singing for them. John Bush, singer from Armored Saint. They recently did a show in San Francisco where John Bush did sing the Four Horsemen, and it sounded fantastic.
Of course it does.
So, of course it did. So, that's another direction. Like, you wonder if Dave Mustaine stuck around and didn't get fired, where they would have gone. You wonder if Cliff didn't die, where they would have gone. What happened if John Bush was their singer, where they would have gone? Like, it's just, I love Metallica so much, but there's these splinters that you wish you could have explored, but still had Metallica also, like this version, but you had a Splinter one where, oh, there's this other way they went, and it sounded like this. Like, oh man, I wish they could have somehow done that, because it's just not enough Metallica, right? There's
Yep.
just not enough out there.
For sure.
So, my favorites on this one are 72 Seasons, the title track, Lux Eterna, I like a lot. If Darkness Had a Sun, I really like a lot. That's a great song. And Too Far Gone, I like also. Skippers on here, I have a few. Sleepwalk My Life, Sleepwalk This Song Away, Sleepwalk My Life Away. I didn't really care for that one. It's a bad joke. It's a bad joke performance there.
Didn't.
Anyway, yeah, it's not even worth that. It was bad. Crown of Barbed Wire, I didn't like. Chasing Light and Room of Mirrors. I didn't care for any of those songs. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 songs. So a third of this album, I didn't really. I'd probably skip those for the most part. This I have rated exactly the same as Hardwired. I have this as a B minus. This is 8 for me. The only reason I rank this above Hardwired is because of, like I said, the vocals. I like the direction that James is going here, but to me, these two albums are really, really close as far as how much I like them. Again, I really liked a lot of this stuff when it first came out, but even though it was only a year and a half ago, I don't like it's already starting to fade for me. I don't like it as much now as I did when it first came out. This is number 8. This is mid tier for me. There's just nothing to get super excited about on here for me, or that really connects with me that well, other than maybe If Darkness Had a Sun. I'm always hoping the next one, though, being the last one we're going to review, I'm always hoping the next one will just be amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're still there. They can still do it. I know they can. They still have it in them. But they just come out with albums so infrequently, it feels like it's never going to happen.
Right.
I feel like if we got to wait another 7 years until 2030 when the next album comes out, that's going to be it. They're not going to put any more albums out. So
Maybe.
I just feel like all this time is wasted. Like, give us more Metallica. I know that they can't just create stuff out of thin air. Like, I realize this is a difficult process and all that, but I love them so much, and I want them to put out one more great album, like Anthrax came back and put out just ridiculously great albums. Testament, I want them to just put out one more just fantastic album where I'm like, where does this go? Number 4, number 3?
Right.
Where does this go? Like, not number 8 or 9, but where does this go? Like,
I
this
hear
is
you.
way better than those.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. They put out so few of them, and it takes so damn long. Like, I just don't feel like I'm losing hope it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, what did you think of 72 Seasons, sir?
This is my favorite of the new 3.
Okay.
I love it. It's worked its way up. This is my grass cutting album.
Okay.
I like it because there's not a lot of standout tracks to me.
I feel like you could cut your grass twice listening to this album, honestly.
No, you're right.
You're talking about cutting the grass, trimming the bushes,
Yes.
cleaning the garage out,
Right, all of it.
cleaning the lawnmower, refueling it.
My cleaning afternoon, right, exactly. But this album, I think, just as a whole, just sounds good. It doesn't have a lot of moments that stand out to me where I'm like, I love this song and I love this song. But I love putting on the album and just letting it play.
Yeah.
I do love 72 Seasons. Shadows Follow. I love that song. It's so good.
Okay. I like that one too. I wouldn't skip it, but
yeah, Screaming Suicide, good. Lux Eterna is probably the best song on the album. It's 3 minutes long, so it's not really a whole lot of stuff. Darkness Had a Sun. I did not like it initially, but it has grown on me, and I like it. And I love that bookmark on the end. In Enamorada, I think is phenomenal. And just the guitar work on this album, it just feels to me like the closest that it sounded since the 80s. It's a guitar album, and that's why I can just put it on in the background and do things, and I just enjoy it. I have a good time listening to it. So yeah, it's worked its way all the way up to number 7 for me. So
I like Enamorada too. It's just 11 minutes and 10
it
seconds.
is,
It's too long.
But to me, like I said, it's the matter of looking at it as a full thing. It's like, for me, it's like one big song, and I like to put it on when I'm doing something, and it just makes the time go by fast. So I love it. Good stuff. I like this album, and I'm with you, man. I hope that they do something that blows my mind. But again, I feel like they're in this pocket, and if we're just going to keep getting they're
there.
At least we're getting this, and it's good.
Yeah.
We could be getting Saint Anger over and over, or we could be getting, whatever.
I feel like their next album is going to be good. I just feel like they got one more in them that could be great. They got one more. It's right there.
Yep. I'm with you. All right. What do you got for your 1 to 11?
Overall, like I said, I almost had a tie at 1, but that's kind of a cop out. I had to choose one or the other. So for 1, I have Injustice for All. Number 2, I have Master of Puppets. Number 3, Kill 'Em All, which is kind of where I started. Again, between that and Ride the Lightning, which is 4, I kind of flip-flop between there. I'm like, which one do I really like more? The Black Album, number 5, that kind of stands alone there, I think. I like the other 4 better than that one, but there's the ones behind it aren't even close to that. So that one's just solid number 5. I got Load at number 6, Death Magnetic at number 7. Those two I had a tough time too. I could easily flip-flop those, but I just feel like I like more songs on Load, and I listened to that probably more than I listened to Death Magnetic, and I feel like it's a production for Death Magnetic with that distortion and that clipping. So Death Magnetic number 7, 72 Seasons number 8, Hardwired number 9, Reload number 10, and Saint Anger number 11. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I honestly came into this thinking we'd be all over the place, but we're pretty much right on, just a little bit different. But, the things I thought were going to be we're going to be bashing this out. We were pretty close on. So, number 1, Master of Puppets. Number 2, I have Ride the Lightning. Number 3, and Justice for All. 4, Metallica, or the Black Album. Number 5, I had Load. Number 6, Kill 'Em All. Number 7, 72 Seasons Gone. Number 8, Death Magnetic. Number 9, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Number 10, Reload. And number 11, Saint Anger. So, again, pretty close.
Pretty close, yep. Not
Pretty
much to
shocked.
argue with there. I mean, just a couple switched here and there, but not much. Not like 7-2 or something like we had a couple times. But it's funny too how I wrote these out. They're 1 through 11. Like I should post it, but other than 72 Seasons and Saint Anger, like I could write them all out in one word. Like so, I have 1 Justice, 2 Master, 3 Kill, 4 Ride, 5 Black, 6 Load, 7 Magnetic, 8 72 Seasons, 9 Hardwired, 10 Reload, and 11 Saint Anger. So it's weird because I just shorten them because everybody knows what they are, right? So it kind of cracks me up.
Yep. Awesome. Well, we got a little over 2 hours of a podcast.
Yes,
here.
sir. And I think I said last week we're gonna have a 2-hour podcast on Metallica. And it's today I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be that long. Well, guess what? It was over 2 hours.
We got it.
I just love Metallica. What can you do?
Metallica especially with us, they deserved a long episode, and I'm glad we did it all at once. Get it all out.
About splitting it up and doing an hour and an hour, or hour and 10. But yeah, I'm kind of glad we kept it all together too, because they're so big for both of us. It's almost hard to just stop and then pick it back up. So I see Tyler here has got some ratings. Let's get him in here. He's got 1 Master of Puppets, 2 72 Seasons. That's pretty surprising. 3 Reload. Not Load? 3 Load? Wow. 4 Ride the Lightning, 5 Hardwired. So that's his top 5. So
all right.
Thank you, Tyler, for being here and commenting. And thank you to my lovely wife, Kelly, who's subscribed and is probably listening over there too. So
awesome.
At least we had a couple people. So hopefully everybody can join in, man. And thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Great to have somebody comment and we can bounce things off of and have a different ranking than what we got. So
all right. Yeah, appreciate it, Tyler. And thanks for watching. And next week, we go to Mastodon, right?
Mastodon, yes, sir.
So,
next Tuesday, same time, same bat time, same bat channel, as they say, right?
That's right. So we will dig into Mastodon. I love them. I know you're kind of new to them, so I'm interested to see what you think when you listen to them.
I'm kind of interested too. I'm kind of excited. I haven't really gotten into them, but I am looking forward to digging deeper into their material, because what I had heard didn't connect with me that much, so I just didn't really listen to much. But now I need to go through the whole thing, and I'm going to do it. So
I
will definitely have some thoughts. That's for sure.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And, if you're watching, tuning in late on demand, please please subscribe, please leave comments. We want to hear what your order is, and we want to be able to talk about that with you guys in the comment section. So thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.
That's right. Cheers, Tyler. Rock on.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.